Welcome to Dr. Jeffrey Roth's Looking Good and Feeling Great podcast, live from Las Vegas, with his co-host, Darrell Craig Harris.
Hi folks, it's Dr. Jeffrey Roth here, your board-certified plastic surgeon in Las Vegas, Nevada, and we are at it again with another episode.
I know, it's exciting, and Vegas is hot.
It is that. It's
summertime in Vegas.
It is, yeah, summertime in Vegas. Nothing better than an evening in Las Vegas in the summertime.
It is beautiful.
But you don't want to go anywhere from like 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's a little hot. So.
Oh, yes. Speaking of hot, we were actually talking about before about the pressures of plastic surgeons being in that position of surgery and doctors in general, and what's that like to deal with on a daily basis? Sure.
More and more attention is being put on this, and we physicians have classes on burnout, which we never had before. We're actually talking about it more because forever, the answer was, just be more resilient, toughen it up, et cetera, et cetera. And especially coming through my era, where, especially through general surgery and then followed by plastics, et cetera, we were working 120 hours a week, et cetera. And that was just kind of the way it was. And then the guys before us thought we were soft, and we were compared to them because they were on call every other night. And they were really abused as medical students and residents, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, it's sort of a rite of passage, though, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's not. I think I hope, have gone past the fraternity sort of initiation thing, or it happened to me, therefore it has to happen to you. I think for most people, we're past that, and I think that there's still work to be done. There's still work to be done in making it a more educational experience versus a quote-unquote abusive type of experience. I think we still have to work on diversity issues in medicine, and especially surgery. Yep. I think we have to work more on inclusion, 100%.
Yeah.
And it's better than when I was going through, but still not good enough. And I've seen in the short time I've been on the planet, more folks in leadership positions being women, people of color, women of color, because that really didn't happen when I was coming up. So it's taken along. Some will argue too long. Yes, absolutely. But I think that's better. On the subject of the pressures and burnout and all that stuff, the pressure has always been there as a physician and surgeon, because most people are coming to you at their worst part in their life. Right? Whether they're in a car wreck, if their child has something that has to get operated on. So they're not at their best. And there's always some tension, there's anxiety, there's always drama. And that's why, hospital shows do so well, right? Because you can write a drama about something medical.
Yeah, and it's real.
Every day. And it's hard-hitting often and touching and such. So that's been part and parcel of medicine, because again, you're interacting with folks at their worst, and fear typically brings people to the doctor's office, right? And people should go for their checkups, et cetera, et cetera. But usually it's, hey, I'm not feeling well. What's wrong with me? Hey, there's a lump. What is it?
Sure.
Okay. Or you're in a trauma, you're a car wreck, and you're fearing for your life. You're fearing for what's going to happen next. So people are fearful, anxious, amped up when they come to the doctor's office anyways. And there is such a thing called white coat hypertension. We talked about that earlier, where I was told as a medical student, don't put anybody on high blood pressure medicines unless somebody has checked their blood pressure 3 times who is not the physician, because when the white coat walks in the room, everybody kind of gets
right. Yeah, they get nervous.
The pediatricians, I know one pediatrician, great guy. He, I think, passed his pediatrician board, and I don't think he's worn a white coat in 30 years, because kids know white coats will poke a prod at them, and that's why the pediatric nurses all wear like Snoopy, and that sort of thing. But to your point, is yes, there is pressure always being a physician and surgeon. There is that element of, even with all of your training and all of the things that you've been through, are you going to make a mistake? And your mistake, doctor, has repercussions.
Absolutely.
Whether it's the wrong dose, whether it's the wrong diagnosis, whether it's the wrong medicine, et cetera, et cetera. and you continuously second or third guess yourself, et cetera, because you're playing for keeps. You're not, and there's the memes that come out on the medical stuff is like, you're not studying to pass the test. You're studying to save somebody's life, because at some point in the ball game, you're going to be standing in the trauma bay or in someone's house or in the ER, and you're going to make decisions that's going to let this guy live or die. So not to be dramatic, et cetera, but that's what you're signing up. That's what you're signing up for. Yeah. Okay. So I tell folks, young folks that want to be pre-med students or medical students, if you're in it for the money, get out now. So go get your MBA, go to law school, stuff like that. This is not the place for you. It really has to be a call, in my opinion. It has to be a calling, and you're going to get up at 4 a.m. and do whatever it is that you do. So you might as well love it, and you might as well be good at it. And the people that love what they do, in my opinion, are better at it because they read more about it, they go to conferences more about it, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so that's that part of medicine. And so now the other part of medicine is yes, there's always that. What's the other interesting part of medicine is whatever day Jeffrey has had that day, whether you've had, a rough last 36 hours, you haven't slept, you haven't
life happens.
Whatever the case may be, you had a fight with your girlfriend, et cetera, et cetera. Now you get called to the ER and you got to walk into the patient's room, and the patient doesn't deserve any of that. So you got to leave that at the door and walk in and be the doc and do your doctor thing and focus on the patient, because that's the important person in the room, not you, and figure out how to serve them best and how to fix whatever problem they came in for. So whatever you got going on, they're not part of it. They don't deserve it. So you got to go ahead and step up on stage or whatever you want to call it, and do it. So now what's happened, so that's baseline. That's been going on for thousands of years, right?
Sure.
So what's happened in the modern world is now 51% of physicians are employees. So now you're in a situation,
the business of medicine.
There's the business of medicine, right? And some places are better than others. Some places truly are true to their mission. Some places are less true and more subservient to their stockholders, shareholders. Okay, so we'll put it that way. And so often physicians now are put in this position of ultimate responsibility, but no say, no authority, no say in what they can do, right? So basically, again, I think, so a doctor says, I think this person needs X, needs a CAT scan. And this happened to a buddy of mine, because I had to explain to him what prior authorization was and approval was. And so their insurance company says, no, you need an ultrasound first. I'm like, no, you don't. You need the CAT scan, because what's going to come back is, okay, you need a CAT scan. Well, no kidding, right? Yeah. And so he went to a surgeon who's had decades and decades and decades of training, who saw the patient, laid hands on him. He knows what the patient wants and needs, but you have to ask somebody else. Okay, right. So you have no, and the other thing too is people that work in clinics, they're getting clobbered with, oh yeah, by the way, you're going to cover a second clinic and a third clinic, and oh, by the way, yeah, we want to have you see somebody every 7 minutes, and so they're getting clobbered. And these guys also with the EMRs, they go home and they pop open they eat dinner, stuff like that, and they pop open their EMR and they're charting until 2 a.m, and they know, because you have to sign in and sign out.
Yeah. What's an EMR?
EMR, sorry, electronic medical record, right?
Okay.
So it used to be charts, and in my office, since I'm a dinosaur still, we still have paper charts, and that's nowadays they've. At the beginning, it was a great idea. The EMR, it's all there. It's electronic.
Everybody can access it.
Right? You can go ahead and send prescriptions electronically, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's great. But of course, like any other computer program, there's the glitches and there's a learning curve and all those sort of things. And now they're talking about note glut, meaning that in the hospitals, especially, people are kind of cutting and pasting and putting in all this information, so you get a printed version of your hospital stay, and it's 1,000 pages,
right?
And you're like, well, wait.
And in a way, it dilutes the mission.
It's hard to find, and I do some expert work and stuff like that. And now it's kind of going through, it's like a needle in a haystack to try to find the information you want. But with all of that, the doctor still wants to do the best for the patient. And then again, you're medical legally responsible, because God forbid something goes sideways and now you're in a malpractice suit. Even before that, if a disgruntled patient can flame you on all of these.
They can threaten to sue you.
So, well, yeah, and it takes $271 to sue somebody.
Exactly.
Okay, so
which is a whole other topic.
That's a whole other topic. But even on social media, they'll give you a 1-star review, and it's so we physicians now are really beholden to the patient. We've always been beholden, but now even more so than we have before. And there's pluses and minuses to that, but some people just are going to be, grumpy cat, and whatever you do, they're not going to like.
And any business,
right? Any business. Now, so what's happened is now the physicians have gotten caught in this squeeze, and here's where the rubber meets the road. You've selected out these folks, and you've trained them to be independent thinkers and to show up at earthquakes or natural disasters and be able to run everything. And so, but now you put them in a position that they want to do that, but they're in this position that they can't affect change. And they get very frustrated and they start really getting burned out. So much so that now we have a suicide problem in medicine. 400 physicians a year commit suicide. That's 2 medical school classes on average.
And that's something that's not talked about.
Per year. Yeah. That's more than cops. Okay. And there's a lot more cops than physicians. And cops have a tremendously stressful job. And I like cops, and I would never want to do that job. And I mean, these guys are pulling bodies out of lakes and all kinds of such craziness. And so that's a big deal that we're now medicine, the AMA and organized medicine, all that kind of stuff are now starting to talk about and a couple things. And here in Las Vegas for a while, especially during the pandemic, they had a warm line, which means it's not open 24 hours. But basically the Nevada Psychiatric Association actually had a line that you could call if you were a healthcare worker, or even if you were the guy pushing the mop in a hospital, you could call them and just go, hey, this is what I'm feeling overwhelmed. And the key to that is there was no names taken, no bills taken, no nothing. And so because there's always been, like anything else, even with firemen or policemen or military, that, you don't ask for psych help because
and when you're sort of the head of the ship and the CEO, it's like, who do you talk to?
Right. So so that was nice because physicians can talk to physicians, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now the other interesting thing, and I just read about this too, is now even in the military, they're pushing people to go ahead and talk to somebody. Right. And so you will see now the head enlisted guy, whoever that is for that post, and actually the commander, they'll put their names on the schedule to go ahead and talk to a psych guy. And the reason why they do that is one, it's probably a good idea for them to talk to a psych guy anyways. But two is the people that follow, they're the leaders, right? The people that are following them underneath them go, oh, wait a minute. If the commander is talking to somebody, well, I guess it's okay for me to, if you're the private or whatever. Oh, if the command sergeant major is in there, and I'm a master sergeant or first sergeant, well, I guess it's okay for me to, and it's not going to kill my career or anything else. Right. So, and some folks need. I mean, that's a real stressful job too. I mean, you're parachuting to some of these places.
Yeah, and you're responsible for people's lives.
Oh, 100%. So at least now, and again, things got to get better. But I've seen a tremendous change in that, and so where we'll wind up, where our landing is going to be, we'll see. But at least now, that in of itself is getting better. So there's always been the stress. It's been more now, I think, than ever. Even though technology's gotten better, and the things we can do in medicine are so much better than they ever have been before. It's the best time to be a physician ever in the history of man, except for all the superfluous stuff that comes with the practice,
the baggage,
and the business of medicine. And all
what's I mean, that's obviously there's so much there to unpack, and we could talk about that for hours. But what's some of the favorite things for you that have always been with being a doctor, being a plastic surgeon?
Oh, sure. So, and we talked about this too. Is the ability to make a difference, right? To go ahead and show up. Again, usually in somebody's darkest hour, and make a difference. And again, making a difference. When I used to do trauma, you'd save somebody, or a burn unit, you'd save somebody. And I used to be a reconstructive guy, so again, we would reconstruct people after a tumor or after trauma or whatever that case may be. As a hand surgeon, I was able to restore form and function. As a aesthetic plastic surgeon now, again, you're able to make a difference. And sometimes people poo-poo that, and that's okay. But again, for me, it's some young gal who has size H breasts, right? And they're killing her neck and everything else, and they're making fun of all the time.
Problem all through school, right?
Yeah, and all that. And you're able, with one operation, go ahead and make a difference. And so now she'll, go jogging, and now she'll go play tennis, okay? The classic Hollywood moment is of course, otoplasty or ear pinning, where, these folks have been made fun of forever, Dumbo ears, et cetera, all that. And again, with one operation, and it's the classic Hollywood moment, and we've talked about this, is where you put the mirror in front of the girl, she's holding the mirror, and you unwrap everything, and she looks at her new ears, and she starts crying, and mom starts crying, and all that kind of stuff. So, and that's kind of dramatic Hollywood stuff, but that girl,
it's real,
right?
Yeah,
but that girl never
real.
Was able to play softball because she didn't want to put her hair back, that sort of thing. So, I think you're still able to go ahead, and even the stuff that I do, and I'm way on a branch of medicine, and not really in the trenches anymore and stuff. You're still able to do that. So for me, that's always been my turn on, is to be able to make a difference in somebody else's life with the training that I received and with the experience that I've been granted to have. For me, that's why I put my hard hat on in the morning and take my lunchbox to work and do my things.
Yeah, it's important. I mean, one of the procedures I filmed with you was a breast reduction,
right,
for a really beautiful young lady who had those exact issues, back and neck problems. I'm sure she had difficulty in school. And we were talking about that, and I said, well, you actually changed her life, because it was a very dramatic reduction. Yep. I mean, really huge.
Yeah. And she came out great and happy. And most of those folks are our happiest patients, just like you said. And again, technically, I think it's size, but I also think it's the pendulousness. And if we can kind of get the pendulousness back, it's kind of like having a backpack and the straps are too long, and you put the straps where they're supposed to be. Oh, it fits better, right? Same sort of thing. But this is the one that, that genetically or whatever it was, she got the size H's. Okay.
Right.
So, yeah. And again, not to make her an A, that's ridiculous, right? Yeah. But to go ahead and put her in proportion with her hips and her shoulders so she can buy a dress off the rack.
Yeah, that was actually, I mean, it's a privilege to be able to take photos and film those kind of procedures. And I mean, the result was so dramatic with her in particular that it really made me appreciate what you do. It's really, and not only you, I mean, you had an amazing team.
Yes. So
because you actually, I mean, that's a big part of what you're doing.
It's a huge part. And thankfully right now we really have an A team in there. And it's, again, we talked about this. It's like playing basketball, and you just know where he's going to pass the ball next. So I can cut to the basket, and I know that this guy's going to do a bounce pass, and I know where it's going. I can do a layup, right?
And I should say, too, a very diverse team.
Oh, 100%. So, and I think that's absolutely outstanding as well. And that's frankly, it's really the one thing many things in medicine that I really like is I don't care who your dad is.
Yep.
So don't care where you come from.
Doesn't matter your color, your sexual preference. No, that matters in the operating room.
Don't care. Yep. So don't care. Can you do the job?
Yep.
That's all I care. All I care about. And I now see so much more diversity than it ever was, and I think it's absolutely spectacular at all levels, from the guy pushing them up to the surgery tech, to the nurse, to the anesthesiologist, to the surgeon. It's all getting more and more diverse, and I think more fun.
Yeah. And it brings new perspectives. It's great to have female doctors. It's great to have people from different cultures. It really broadens the perspective of what you're doing.
Oh, yeah.
I think the patients, it makes them happy because you have patients from all different demographics as well.
Sure. Right? And I think that people kind of look around and see, oh, is there somebody who looks like me?
Exactly.
Here.
Yeah.
And again, whether it's a medical student, whether it's a patient, whether it's another, I think we all, look towards that. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line for me is are they trained well enough? And that's why we have standards, so that wherever, God forbid, you get in a car accident or something like that, you wind up at the hospital, you know that the guy coming in that's going to go ahead and fix you at least has hit certain standards, and you're going to be okay.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So, but to your point it's truly, especially surgery, it's a team effort. And if the guy pushing them off doesn't do his job, and I used to be the guy pushing them off,
yep.
Then I can't get to the next case.
Yep.
If the guy that's sterilizing equipment, isn't there that day or doing that at the right thing. So it all befalls everybody. The tip of the sword is me making the tip of the spear is me making the incision, but there's so many things that have to line up first to go ahead.
It's important, and I think it's important for people to realize that in any profession, it takes a village.
No, 100%. And we talked about this, for example, for Children's Heart Center in Nevada. And what they do is congenital abnormalities of the heart. And they have, I guess, 30 doctors now, et cetera, et cetera. But to build something like that, to be at a place where you have to have doctors, you have to have nurses, but it's hard to grow a doctor, and it's hard to grow a surgeon, it's hard to grow a cardiothoracic surgeon, and it's hard to grow a pediatric cardiothoracic surgeon, right? So all those things had to line up for decades to make
took many years to put that together.
Thing happen. So, and then you have to have the pump guys, and then you have to have the ICU nurses, and you have to have all those things. And they all come from other places, but they all come together to go ahead and make that happen. But it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of hard work.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that I even also, too, with your office staff, it's a great team. It's also the same thing, very diverse. And it takes years to build that, which is something you've worked on and continue to work on. It's a process.
Oh, yeah, it's always a process. And, of course, like any other entity, you want to go ahead and grow, and you want to have the right people there. And I think it's an extension of my training and where we practice and everything else. So everybody there is really important to me because they're going to be interacting with the patients.
Yeah, they represent you.
Right. And the patients are the ultimate most important as far as in the practice. And if you're practice focused and you're focused on the patient, and I tell the young folks this all the time, you're going to be okay.
Right.
So the other stuff is going to come and go. It's going to be a pain in the butt and everything else like that. But if you do the right thing for the patient, you're probably going to be all right.
Yeah, you're going to win. Yeah. And the patient wins, which is the most important part of it.
Yep, 100%.
Tell people how they can find you online, social media, all that.
Sure. So we are on the web. Imagine that. So our website is jjrothmd.com. You can find us there. We're all over the social media aspect as well, including Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and all of that. And then, of course, the podcast, which you're listening to now, which we have been really, really happy to bring to you, is we're up on.
I should mention, we just went past 150,000 downloads, which is really awesome.
Yeah, that's absolutely tremendous.
And we'd like to thank Alex, our engineer.
Absolutely.
And Nigel, our production guy in France.
Sure. And then, we're here at Mark Chinook's The Space, and so we love it here as well. So all I can talk about teamwork that has all really kind of come together for all of that. And then Craig actually has been the one really behind all of this. So kudos to him and poor Jack who gets dragged in here. So, but having said all of that and if there is something that you want for us to talk about, if you want to learn something or have any questions about plastic surgery, aesthetic medicine, hey, I read about this in some magazine. Hey, I saw this on the internet. Yes, we'd love to go ahead and talk about that. I obviously love talking about all things plastic surgery and Las Vegas and tons of old stories and everything else. But if there's something you want to hear about, please do let us know. And we'll be happy to get that on for you.
Absolutely. Everybody, thank you so much for following us and subscribing. And if you haven't done that, please do so to follow our future episodes. And thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day.
Have a great day.
Thank you so much for joining us. For further information, please visit the podcast website link for Dr. Jeffrey Roth. See you next time.